if somebody sets a foot, just a foot, 1 foot, you don't need two, on our land, congratulations, you are now a citizen of the United States of America. Yes, we're the only country that has it.
Through an executive action?
We're the only country that has it. We're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Trump was, he was back on Beat the Press. And one of the things that came up, which I've been thinking a lot about now, is he was getting asked a lot of predictable immigration questions, separating families, how are you going to deport this many people, et cetera. But the one that was interesting to me was ending birthright citizenship. There's an interesting debate here. I'm going to play the clip on it, and then we can talk about it after.
About some of your other promises on this topic. You've promised to end birthright citizenship on day one. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
The 14th Amendment, though, says that, quote, all persons born in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment with an executive action?
We're going to have to get a change. We'll maybe have to go back to the people, but we have to end it. We're the only country that has it.
Through an executive action?
We're the only country that has it. Do you know, if somebody sets a foot, just a foot, 1 foot, you don't need two, on our land, congratulations, you are now a citizen of the United States of America. Yes, we're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Through executive action?
Well, if we can, through executive action. I was going to do it through executive action, but then we had to fix COVID first, to be honest with you. We have to end.
Thoughts?
Well, it will be a constitutionally challenged, I think, immediately, because there are questions. This is Phyllis Schlafly, who is no constitutional slouch, for years wanted to do this. And this was one of her prime things she was pushing. So it'll be very interesting. And for me, I think hopefully the courts will settle it once and for all. And right now, I lean more towards the tighter immigration policy that he's pushing.
I'd love to get rid of birthright citizenship. I mean, the idea that maybe it was an idea. I mean, it's true that few countries have it. There are countries, not just the United States, that have it, of course. But
just baseline, what is birthright citizenship? What are they discussing?
The way it has been the law for the last 100 or so years, because of Supreme Court case law, is that if you are born in the United States, even if your parents entered the country illegally, that child, because of birthright, is a citizen of the United States, eligible to become a citizen. That was not actually the whole point of the 14th Amendment. Like, that's the whole thing. You have to look at, why did we pass the amendments in the first place? So the 14th Amendment was, they had to make sure that people understood you are a citizen of the United States, because it's like, well, wait a minute now. Once you free the slaves, are they automatically citizens of the United States? Yes. That was the purpose of the 14th Amendment, because they're like, well, they weren't born citizens, they were born slaves.
The text they're zeroing in on here is, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. And the case law we're referencing here is United States versus Wong Kim Ark in 1898, if anyone's questioning about it. So Chinese parents, and then he was born in America, and they wouldn't let him back into the country when they went.
So he left to go to China,
right?
And then he tries to come back, and they're like, "Well, sorry, you're not a citizen," and he's like, "Well, I've lived here my whole life."
But Josh and Tom, Tom, you were referencing that Phyllis Schlafly wanted to do something about this. Many people have talked about wanting to do something about it. The Supreme Court hasn't touched it. I think obvious reasons being, there's people currently abusing the system by sneaking across the border, having a child. All of a sudden, they enjoy all the rights and privileges of an American citizen. And there's no real requirement or buy-in to wanting to become an American. It makes sense philosophically to me, although, again, going to be kind of a tough sell. Or he's suggesting that we'd have to create a law? Or
I don't think you need a law. I think you can challenge the case law on this one, because the fact of the matter is, again, during the original debate on the 14th Amendment, it was from a senator from Michigan, the sponsor of the amendment, where he made the point that it covered, it excludes persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, or belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers. It was understood at the time of the ratification that this did not include people who entered the country illegally. And so, yes, absolutely, I think this could be challenged.
But I do think your gut feeling, Tom, though, if I'm reading it correctly, because there's a romantic thing to it that
sure.
Like, you're born in this great, because this is the greatest country in the world.
No question.
Has been since its founding. And that is one thing that Phyllis always ran into too. And when you romanticize something, sometimes logic goes out the front door. So it'll be, I think it'll be very interesting, except certainly something that needs to be settled.
And Tom, I want your insight on this too, because yes, it's romanticized. And I think I'm reminded of this exchange between, I think it was Jim Acosta and Stephen Miller back in the day in a press room, basically saying, why aren't you following the motto on the Statue of Liberty? Bring me your tired and cold and huddled masses. And then Stephen Miller shot back, what number satisfies that phrase? Give me a number. Is it 1,000? Is it 100,000? Is it 1,000,000? Is it 1,000,005? It's a balance. So maybe I'm curious, you know the mechanisms better than I do, but it feels like Trump has a really uphill battle in terms of kind of peeling back the swamp in the bureaucracy. And even if he appoints good people, he's got to mess with all of the laws and mechanisms to actually accomplish even a fraction of a mass deportation plan, or even just to try to fix what's basically like this conglomerate of different laws that we now call immigration policy in the country. Do you think he has a legitimate chance at success in this in any variety?
I think he has the best chance right now than any president in my lifetime. And you're right in point. His foe is not the U.S. Constitution. I believe all those around him embrace the U.S. Constitution. His foe is the swamp, who don't want to change things, who are possibly making money, profiting from the current system. Despite, I mean, the spikes in human trafficking, the spikes in sex trafficking, the abuse of children that's happening under the current policy, and has happened before, but just sped up quite a bit under Biden. He's going to have to win over the American people, I think, to defeat the swamp.
Right, and I feel like he has it. As soon as you start seeing deportations, you're going to start seeing every sob story imaginable, and so I think it's going to take a really effective, well done media response team to keep the will of the American people.
Yeah,
I mean, I think precisely because the first round of deportations are going to be people who have committed an additional crime other than simply entering the country illegally, which of course is a crime. They're going to kick out people who are murderers, who have committed sexual or physical assault, robbery, whatever. That's going to be the first wave of people that they're going to, and that's a lot, by the way, lot of them, not an insignificant number. We're talking like 6 digits.
Well, in the thousands for sure in terms of murder.
Tens of thousands.
And every news story needs to be countered with a Lincoln Riley story.
Right.
Because there are unfortunately hundreds of those.
So I do think that there's going to be, that's going to counter it. It's going to be hard for them to use the sob stories immediately when there's 99% of them are being that are being expelled, or these thugs and murderers and stuff like that. And then there's the one guy in New York City. Remember that illegal immigrant who got free phones and everything, and then he gives the double middle finger.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, keep that up. So like this idea that is the media going to manufacture a lot of sob stories on this? Yes. Are the American people kind of, stealing themselves for all this kind of crap that's going to come from the media? I think so. I think the media has lost a lot of its power. I mean, I think even when you start talking about like these cabinet picks, okay? So like the concern for the Beltway for the longest time was like, oh no, the Washington Post is going to attack us for all this stuff, right? And like, I think Trump and his team were like, you do realize that the corporate media don't matter as much anymore. I mean, they're not like completely insignificant anymore, but they don't get a veto power over the policies of a Republican administration. We were elected by the people. You were elected by the people, you senators. Go out there. You have a responsibility to your voters more than you do some newspaper reporter who's, went to some communist journalism school. Screw them. Like, why are you doing this? It's the same thing with this media propaganda stuff here. It's like, for so long, Republicans in the Beltway were gun shy about what 60 Minutes might do or what the New York Times might say. Forget it, dude. We can go around them. Donald Trump was on Joe Rogan and spoke to 100 million people directly for 3 hours. Forget this. You can still do, and he did. He did his media interview with Meet the Press. Whatever, fine. Go ahead and do that. He can do that. I trust Trump and I trust Vance to make those media interviews. But the rest of them, like, Like the reporters, like they think they're the ones who are supposed to hold these politicians accountable. No, that's our job as the voters. Thank you very much. Give me a break.